Hey folks, welcome back to another Pawn Master video, and at the end of the month, as usual, we'll do these the tier list videos just to see, sort of where the units are at this current meta, right? Also, a really interesting thing is we are obviously closing in on the second anniversary. Personally, I am expecting a bit of a meta change, right? Whether they're going to add a new mode or maybe a new difficulty to the Champion Stadium or something like that, right? So this very, very likely could drastically change by the next patch, right? Which is, again, something interesting to look forward to, I guess. But at the moment, it's still basically the same, right? At the moment, just very offensive, very fast, units are obviously much better in the current meta. But again, hopefully we'll get a bit of a meta change later on. Maybe, give AoE units a bit of a buff in the meta, or slower, more tanky, longevity units, maybe give them a bit of an edge in the next meta. Who knows, right? But yeah, at the moment it is what it is, and we're gonna rank them in the current meta, right? So as usual, shout outs to the folks who helped make this, right? Runner, Joe, and Dawson on our Discord server. So if you have any complaints, you guys can join the Discord server and yell at them and me if you want. Anyways, yeah. So, also, do you want to mention this isn't like, which units you should summon for or spend your gems on? Because that's a very, very different conversation, right? In terms of the value of each unit, in terms of, like, in comparison to gems, with how strong they are, right? So, anyways, let's get into this. So, as usual, I'll just throw one unit in each tier so we kind of get a sense of which tier, is kind of at where, right? So starting off, let's go with the top tier. I think probably Berg and Togepi is a good example of that. Does a bit of everything, right? Gives you offensive buffs, albeit slow, but also gives you defensive buffs. Can take hits, has a 1-gauge spamble metronome, and then you'll have very, very good crit buffs as well, right? So just gives you a bit of everything as a support, and obviously warrants the spot up there. Moving on to next year, very good, I'd say. Speaking of things that do a bit of everything, All Creamy also does a bit of everything, right? But this is both buffing and debuffing, right? Debuffs special defense, which is very, very, very nice. Debuffing attack, which is sometimes useful. Just other things, the attack, special attack buff, gradual heals. Just a very, very nice, useful unit that, again, just does a bit of everything. Right, moving on to the next here. Good, we could probably put in something like a Singsu Lisa. Has crit buff, sync move countdown, although sometimes sync move countdown is not very useful, sometimes very useful, right? It just depends on your team comp, right? If you have any other sync move countdown units, or if you get MP refresh on breathtaking. Special attack buffs. She has dodge. The only thing is just like her crit buff is not very reliable, unfortunately, and she does need some other unit or get lucky on breathtaking and MP refresh to like make her same move countdown useful, which is honestly a big part of her kit. So yeah, there's that as well. Moving on to next year, who should put up there? Maybe something like Torchic. All right, very good all-around buffer. Gives crit buffs, special attack buffs, physical attack buffs. Right, can't max any of them out, but gives you at least, gets you 90% of the way there. Or 80%, however you want to, right? It gets you the way there. Also, self-speed buffs is nice. Flamethrower has a chance to burn. Bulk stats aren't bad, right? Obviously, you don't have any defensive buffs or healing mechanisms, but you could take 2 or 3 hits before going down, I guess. Not that that's a positive. Moving on. And the still useful tier, I'd say something like a Acerola, right? Definitely not the best Sandstorm unit at the moment, but you can still use it. And there are some upsides to using Acerola as a Sandstorm unit, right? First of all, 1-gauge spam with the flinch on Astonish is still nice, right? She gradually heals, and Sandstorm, not that you want to tank with her, you probably don't. And then you have attack buffs with Flag Bearer. And then you have crit buffs as well. A chance at crit buffs, at least, with Acerola. So she's still nice. She's still nice. Doesn't mean like she's completely obsolete now that Inga's in the game. Moving on to decent tier, I'd say. Oh, a good example of a decent unit would be something like a Metachan. Has crit buffs, attack buffs. That's about it. Which is still nice. She can't max them out, but like they're there. If you need like +2 crit, if you already have like +1 crit or +2 crit and you want to max it out, you could throw her in there. She could do the job, right? Moving on to, I guess, has uses. Maybe something like Grimsy, I guess. You rarely use him, but you can use him. Snatch, take some stats. Very, very useful in the Cresselia Legendary Arena, which makes him like useful in like one of the stages in like all of the game. Basically. Please don't bring up the Mewtwo thing anymore. Like no one cares about the Mewtwo thing. Come on. What age is it now? Alright. And then the last here, which is called, I mean, you still get Sync Move Countdown, I guess, here. Something like a Marlin, I guess. Just doesn't really do much. Defense buffs. Cool. That's about it. Yeah, that's Marlin. Anyways, let's go through the rest of these, I guess. I don't know, what order should we go in? Let's just go from left to right, I guess. We could do that. Obstagoon, probably still in 3rd tier. I mean, not a lot of these have changed, I don't think, but we can still go through them. Has crit buffs, has obstruct, which you could do some stuff with. But yeah, it's just great that it could max crit buffs easily. Nanu, which I actually like a lot, honestly. I'd say still useful, right? The really, really fast defense debuffs are always going to be useful, right? It's always going to be useful. That's that, right? Grant, AoE flinch is just not good. Paraflinch, but like very costly. There's just better units that could paraflinch. Glacia, I don't know. You have gradual heals, which is nice. Redirecting damage honestly isn't that bad, even though she's not that great at tanking, but like you could use her in some clutch scenarios for that, I guess, but overall not extremely great unit. Obviously her highlight is her very, very good chance to freeze, although freeze comps aren't like insanely great at the moment, but you could do that. She's definitely one of the best units to freeze in the game, right? Moving on, Kukui. AoE defense debuffs, has flinch, very, very fast, right? Do some damage here and there. Solid. Skyla, speed buffs, defense buffs, can take some hits, potions are nice, right? 1 gauge spam with MGR 9, which is really, really good. Attack buffs on sync, has 6 REX, this and that, right? Moving on, we got Phoebe. Even though she got an EX, I don't think that moves her up. She's still probably here, which is still very, very, very good, right? She is pretty slow, unfortunately, but the great thing about her is she does trigger Hoenn passives, right? Hoenn Master passives, which is fantastic. And she's probably she's the best Hoenn support that we have at the moment. Hopefully we get like a Champion Wallace in the future that makes, you know, gives us a better Hoenn support, but at the moment it's Phoebe's best Hoenn support, right? Has crit buffs. The only, right, in that region. So there we go. Moving on, Brock and Onyx, pretty solid unit, honestly, right? Good defensively, or physically defensive unit. There's potions, speed debuffs, attack. There's just a lot of debuffs, right? Viola, also, you know, fine as well, except on the special side, right? Can debuff opponent's special attack. It's trap. Can take hits, right? Pretty nice. Eevee, I don't know. Maybe here. I don't know. She has 1 gauge spam, which is nice. She has potions. Obviously, we all know what her big downside is. She just doesn't support unless you sync with her, and you don't really. I don't know. It's a bit of a waste a lot of times, honestly. But I mean, she's still fine. She's still overall fine. Moving on, Blastoise is obviously still up here. Buffs like everything, even though he's really slow at buffing everything. But he will buff everything eventually. It takes a while, but he'll get there, right? Speaking of Xerneas, honestly, Xerneas's buffs are nice, but again, you still have to sync with her, which kind of sucks. but she is still a fantastic tank, right? She's a fantastic tank. Moving on. Speaking of fantastic tanks, Erica, very good tank here. But outside of tanking doesn't really do too much, unfortunately. But still a very good tank. Marowak. Marowak's still nice, but I do think like a lot of other units has sort of like taken Marowak's job, which is the buff all offensive stats, right? Which again, Marowak still does. And Marowak still does have defense debuffs, right? Which is nice. Guaranteed defense debuffs. Self-speed buffs, all that stuff. Or eventually, you know, team, right? But yeah, he's fine. Luxray, probably in second tier. I mean, he's the only electrifying unit in the game. Very tanky. Paraflinch, right? Good stuff. Clement, I don't know, he just doesn't seem that, he doesn't see that much use, unfortunately. Like, the concept of it is still nice. He's still, what, one of the rare accuracy debuffers in the game. Or dedicated accuracy debuffers, I guess. Speed debuff, although Palatine Serena took that job away from him, unfortunately. Right, so it is what it is, I guess. Tangela. Tangela's kind of like Viper, but with a grid. Right, basically a toxic trap stall unit. Right. Sabrina got an EX, which I would put here, but I don't think anyone agrees, so it's fine if she's just here. Yeah, Sabrina obviously still the best special support in the game, right? In terms of just pure offensive support, right? Max crit buffs, max special attack buffs, heals, speed buffs, accuracy buffs. She can heal on sync if you want. She's insanely fast. Right now that she has an EX, she has a support EX buff as well, on top of doing very solid damage with Psychic, right? What else? Rosanta, throw her nice, I guess. Even outside of Hail, obviously she's very good in Hail, but outside of Hail, she still has some solid buffs, right? Move gauge acceleration is always very useful. Attack buffs are nice, and then whatever random buffs you get from her are always an extra bonus, right? Really good for Rising Tide units as well. Buggy and Scyther, probably second here, right? A physical support that debuffs physical defense is just amazing. It's just amazing, right? So there's that. This guy's whatever. I mean, Brick's not that great. Potions are cool, but like there's better potion units. Dawn, maybe third tier, right? Just a great all-around tank. Right, especially for physical, also debuffs opponent's physical attacks. But yeah, just great tank all around. Moving on, Blaine. Say decent. Obviously, he's not the best. He's not the best sunsetter, but he is a sunsetter. So there he is. Clefairy, probably still third tier. Buffs all the offensive stats except for crit. Does give guaranteed crit. So there's that. Although obviously guaranteed crit is so much worse than just straight up buff and crit. Right. It has accuracy buffs, which are also rare, so that's nice as well. Kind of slow though. Well, very slow unfortunately, but yeah. Lyra's still nice, right? Sun teams are still very much in, right, at the moment. Has light screen. Under Sun you buff like 1 billion stats, and by 1 billion I mean 3. But by 2, so that's a lot. Alright, there's that. This guy's whatever. His tanking is overrated. Umbreon. Probably here and nice, I guess. Right. Her healing move is very good. You can only use it once, unfortunately. You do have MP refresh on that, so that's good, right? But outside of that, it's just like speed buffs. It's like a worse Skyla. She's just like a worse Skyla. You don't have an EX. You don't have your heals just aren't as reliable as Skyla, right? Even though your heals do more, but it's just not as reliable as Skyla. Plus Skyla also buffs defense and all that stuff, and attack if you really want to. Elio, least reliable sleeper in the game, unfortunately, but does have like some cool buffs here and there. Swellow, this is a new one. Yeah, I'd probably top tier. He's like he's kind of like Marowak, right? The unfortunate part is obviously his, the 2-turn move, right? But you don't have to use it. You could just like straight up ignore his fly and all his like stuff that's associated with fly, right? You could still use it if you really, really need it, obviously. It's not like it's a death sentence, but you could totally ignore it and he's still really good. is Faulkner, right? Just very, 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 very solid and reliable buffs, right? Lily Bee is nice, max crits, another rare evasion buffer. Stays alive with his, with the leech life, right? Moving on, Roxanne. Probably still here, right? She gets carried because she's a Hoenn. But her buffs are also really, really nice, right? Speed, special attack, defense. Those are really, really, really good buffs. Has one use of Wide Guard as well. Right, but yeah. Hoenn just is very broken at the moment. Ramos. A more reliable sleeper than Elio, but obviously doesn't do all the other stuff Elio does, unfortunately. And he's just slower than Agatha. Like, there really isn't much reason to ever run Ramos over Agatha. Right? Hilbert is fine. Buffs everything physically, right? Physical attack, crit, gives you speed 2. Right? Pretty good. Honchkrow, probably tier 3, right? Again, the issue, same with Rachel, is the trainer move only has like one use. It does have NPR, but again, first of all, it's not like a very high NPR. And second of all, again, it's just not like very reliable, but he's good. He's nice. Moving on, Steelix. Steelix, yeah, I mean, physically defensive is very much physically defensive, but outside of that, doesn't really do too much. Pretty slow, honestly. All right. It's just very hard to find a spot for her, especially now that like Ingo's a thing. Like, why would you ever run Jasmine in a Sandstorm comp if you have Ingo, right? Starmie's still nice, I guess. Evasion buffs, special defense buffs, gradual heals. Also does like really good damage, which is, that does bring up an issue, which is like, what's the line between utility and hybrid? Which is again a very, very hard line to really find. Pelipper. Yeah, probably the same tier as Lane, I guess. Like, yeah, they set up weather, but there's just better weather setters. But they're still a weather setter, so. Morty gives defense buffs, heals. Pretty solid as defensive support. It's just defense supports aren't really in right now. Blissey's okay. Blissey's okay, right? Obviously, you don't want to tank physical moves with Blissey, ever. But outside of that, the buffs are fine. You get heals, support buffs, or not special buffs, right? Lana just doesn't do much, honestly. I actually kind of like using her, right? She just doesn't really do anything. Her buffs are very mediocre, right? But I do like the guards. They're nice. Not that they're like super useful, but they're cool to see like the opponent hit for nothing against you. Ingo's good, right? Sets up Sandstorm, 1 gauge Spamble. Decent tank, right? Gives solid offensive buffs, and yeah, has a free move for your whole team, which is great if you're trying to run multiple strikers. Mina's kind of whatever. Lunetone's okay, right? Buffs both offensive plus Hoenn. Rosa's fine, take some hits. The natural bulk. The special attack buffs are nice. Move gauge buffs are frustrating to use, even though they're good, but frustrating because of how limited they are. This guy's like a mini Hilbert, which is cool. That'll also guarantee paralysis, which is cool. She's still okay, right? Solid tank, can do some damage here and there. Paralysis, you know, confusion and all that stuff. Sometimes not very reliable. Wheezing. If only it was like AoE badly poison, that would be so much better, but it's not, unfortunately. This guy, he's fast, debuffs, you know, special attack fast, but like that's about it. So Viper, yeah, I don't know, Tangle is just better, right? Tangle is basically Viper with the grid. Hail is cool, I guess, but like outside of that, you got nothing. Bryson use him once every year. Or I guess twice every year, since Frixella got a rerun. Alright, you use them twice every year. Milk Tank, use her once every never. Charon also not very useful. Drake's okay, right? The defense buffs plus Hoenn. She has speed buffs, but like there's better speed buffers that also do actually useful stuff. She's fine if you want a toxic stall, and she's just not very useful. So there we go, folks. That's really this one, I guess. Hope you all enjoyed it. Have fun saying stuff in the comments down below that probably aren't, you know, very well researched, but anyways, have fun, folks. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.